Hello guys, David Bose here again. Well, it's another beautiful day. Blue skies and oh, Mr. Chicky. They just my pets. They jump up here and sit on my lap and starting to develop names for them. And yeah, Buster looks really excited. He's like, is somebody talking to me? And so that's Buffy. And this here, excuse me. Oh, that one right there with the orange neck. She's got her head down. She's black. That's one of my favorites. And I call her Pheasant. And so the lightest colored one is Cloud. I don't know where she is. She's right there. Cloud's sitting right there. Cloud and Pheasant. Cloud and the Pheasant. How am I going to say the Pheasant? Anyway, that's the chickies, and the doggies have gotten pretty accustomed to the chickies. They'll come up and peck them in the butt or stand on them, and they just look at them like, what's going on here? Yeah, and you know, one of the things that I was worried that these chickens would come in here and get on the carpet and start pooping on the chair and stuff. But you know, they rarely do drop one in here. I didn't know that chickens would do that, but you know how dogs, at first when they're puppies, they'll poop on the floor, but... Okay, one of the chickens got too close. And they learn. Oh, you see that white feather she's got there? Isn't that neat? That's two tails. Puppies learn to go outside. They prefer to go potty outside once they get big enough they understand. And I think these chickens realize this is a nicer area where they lounge. I don't like them sitting there, but at the moment we don't have a door here, so the chickies are coming in to visit and sitting in my lap. When I get the dome built in about a week, we're going to start up with that over there. Well, the door will be probably closed to the chickens. I don't know. I really don't know. Here comes Pheasant. But anyway, they're joy and they're pets, and they'll come right up in your lap. Well, yesterday I was on the show, Caravan to Midnight, John B. Wells. I thought it went pretty well. Some of you may not have found it or didn't watch it. On my Facebook, there's a link to it. It's on Rumble. You can go on to Rumble. Just go to Rumble. Click on the website, which is, I find going to Rumble directly through the internet is better. I don't know how, if you get the Rumble app, it doesn't seem to work very well for me. It's slower and you can't find anything. But you just go into Rumble and write, you could write, I think you can write David Vos, but I think I did that once. But I think all you need to do is write John B. Wells. I think it's John B. Wells or Caravan to Midnight. Try both of those and you'll find it. Now, it's a long program, so if you're just looking to hear what I have to say, I talk for, I guess, an hour and a half. Of course, there's a lot of commercials in between. I start at the 1 hour and 35 minute mark. 1 hour and 35 minutes of it is not, I'm not on there, the first 1 hour. So go and watch it and tell me what you think. I really do believe the Lord guided me. I feel that I was able to get the message of the gospel to like 5 million people. And I hope, and I have noticed that I have gotten some subscriptions. My subscription count went up yesterday by 100 or something. So, I mean, I normally get, you know, like 100 new subscribers a month or something. And so I think I got quite a few just in that one day. We'll see how it works. So, and of course the reason we want this is because I'm trying to tell people the good news of the gospel and the way that we can be delivered from the wrath that's coming. I think it's a very important message. And I thank John B. Wells and Brindy over there for their absolute expertise and their kindness and their love for the Lord in allowing me to go on their show. I did notice that at the end of the broadcast, John, the last thing he said is, "We'll be talking to you again." So I felt that was a sign, and only John knows, but I believe that John speaks just what he feels, says what he means. I've never seen anyone. I mean, you guys can go and talk about, Alex Jones or some of you like Tucker or whoever. I think John B. Wells may be the most accurate. He does a lot of news on his program. First hour and a half, he talks a lot about current events and politics and current things. And he's just spot on with a lot of what he says. And he believes in the Lord Jesus very much. I think, but what's really important is that I have heard hundreds of people that you might think are the good guys, like the Tucker. I've got things against Tucker, serious doubts because his father was in the CIA. And he's involved with Elon. I do not believe that that's grassroots or good. I think that they are in on the con. Alex Jones, while I do appreciate some of his revelations in the past about, the Sandy Hook and that's all we're allowed to say here today about that. But, Alex tells a lot of things is true. And they certainly have banned him on the internet, on all the platforms. Of course, he still has a nationally syndicated radio program, even though he went to court and they fined him $1 billion for telling the truth. The only problem I have is he's kind of backtracked just a little bit. Maybe he was under obligation to do that, but it seems like Alex now, when he talks about it, said he was wrong, that it wasn't a big HOA, with that other letter. But I don't know. I mean, maybe what he's saying is that there was some kind of a school there and there might have been some event and we don't really know what happened. But I was doing my podcast, my little videos back in those days when all that was going on. I mean, I've been on here a while. And at the time, I was absolutely convinced it wasn't HOA. I have done quite a few videos back in the day. I mean, this was years ago, proving beyond a doubt that it was, as we say, with those letters, those 4 letters. And I have no doubt that what I determined at that time is the truth. The day before that particular event happened, there were people who showed pictures of the yellow ribbon around the parking lot. They had already put up outdoor toilet facilities, little plastic outhouses, and they had stacks, like truckloads of bottled water that they were planning on giving out. You had to enter in and go through a checkpoint. This is day before. There is absolutely no doubt that the entire thing was... Anyway, we have to stop there because, Alex Jones was fined $1 billion for saying such things. But, so, I don't know what to think about Alex. I did say on that program that the other day, it was a month ago or so, or less, I don't know, where I was talking about Tucker Carlson. And in that article I was reading there that was exposing Tucker's dad as a CIA agent, it mentioned an Alex Jones. And at the moment when I was reading that, I did think it was Alex. But it's a different Alex Jones. So I don't have proof that Tucker was in on it with Alex Jones, that particular Alex Jones. So, you know, but it doesn't matter either way. I know that sometimes people are involved. I mean, shoot, I believe Jehovah's Witnesses are involved. They've got a seat on the World United Nations platform, and yet they claim they're independent. Sometimes people think they are independent when they're really not. It's like people today in the world who say they're not a part of the world, and yet they're living literally up to their neck in it. People want to believe they're doing the right things. They don't realize just how deep into the world they are, how far they've gotten suckered. So maybe Alex Jones is a independent thinker, and he's got a lot of good points and so forth, but perhaps they keep him on a short leash. We don't really know. I'm only talking about Alex because he was the closest that I could find out there, but I'm too worried that, same thing's happening like with Trump. You see him say something you like, kind of, you stand up and you want to root for him, but at the same time, you realize that all this illusion of everybody hating him, it's a psyop. And, he's too close to Elon. And you say, yeah, but Elon's back in DeSantis. Well, we just showed you yesterday, or a couple of days ago, that DeSantis was a part of the St. Elmo secret order, secret society, the sister organization to the Skull and Bones. Therefore, he was chosen by the highest of the elite and put into office in Florida. And therefore, what he's doing, they want him to do it, and they want you to witness it. And as I said, even on the program with John Wells last night, that, what they want is for you to believe that there is all this evil. The average people wouldn't have participated in the pretending they were a boy trapped in a girl's body. Or it's always the boys that want to become girls. You don't see a whole lot of girls wanting to become boys. I don't know what the deal is with that. With the boys, for a long time, it was just boys. They were all gay, right? Then we started hearing a little bit about lesbians, but it was like, oh, well, we don't mind the lesbians. That's fine. I mean, all the guys in power like that idea. Anyway, so they didn't find that too offensive, but they certainly didn't like the gays. But it's the same, it's a little bit opposite when it comes to this other trans, what they call that. I call it cross-dressing. But it's really just the men who want to go into the little girls' bathrooms. So, and they're always old and ugly, and you can't figure out what they're trying to do. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think they could have went out. It's certainly not in time. There's a schedule to make. Jesus is coming back. So they had a certain time limit, and they needed the world to become confused. So they had to hire their brothers and sisters to be actors. You look at the Lady Gaga and the Streisand and all the things that, and the Hollywood and the media. They're all actors. People, even presidents like Reagan was an actor. Zelensky's an actor. So the people in power that we're watching and we're like, what? Just shaking our heads? What is wrong with the world? It's not really the world. The average people. I mean, yeah, they're beginning to affect our children. People are beginning to think, oh, well, it's just normal to go and put a big hole right through your skull, right? And cut parts of your body off. And we've got to dress up like a clown in order to be seen in public, And all the insane, oh, I love music that's, got a beat. Well, and also a foul mouth. What's going on here? Do people really want that? That debauchery? Well, I think it's kind of like a little mesmerism where everybody's like, do you like the devil? I'm kind of scared to say no, because then you won't like me. Okay, I like the devil a little. I'm not into the devil, but I like listening to his music. Hey, once in a while to each his own. I mean, hey, you have a right to do whatever you wish. If you want to become a horse and get married to a horse, that's your problem. No. Oh, you can't say that, right? They'll take you down off of Facebook for saying it's a problem. Even if you didn't mean to say that, like I didn't mean to say it. But hey, I don't mind saying it. It is a problem. And so what I'm saying is that out of all these people out there, I mean, go through them. Joe Rogan, I think he's one of them. And he's on the conservative side. They want him to talk like straight down the middle, common sense. It was just common sense, And he throws in some stuff like, yeah, it's just common sense. We like football and beer and boxing. And you're like, okay, I'm on his side. He's just one of us. He's wearing a T-shirt. Come on, look at his studio. It's like a brick. Where is he? Down in the dungeon somewhere? I don't know. The table's just full of trash. People come on, they smoke cigars and get high. And so, hey, everybody's going to like it, right? But then he'll start talking and start, like, yeah, we believe in the esoteric wisdom here. But then they start talking the dark side. And they're like, what? Come on, Joe. Or, they start talking about aliens and abductions, like as if the world just accepted that. Like it's just a curiosity. We like to talk about Satan coming and possessing your soul. No, that's not really the good guys. He's a little confused. He doesn't know if he believes in Jesus. See, but this is the normal. Oh, he's a conservative, see. He's not one of these raving liberals. He doesn't like Antifa, Dave. Oh, well, I'm glad he doesn't like people coming up behind you with a baseball bat and knocking in the head. That's great for Joe. I'm thinking, thank goodness we got that in common. But Joe is just really, he's not really this big, I wouldn't say intellectual that knows all of this stuff, that we should follow his wisdom. He's a little, I would say, controlled. They let him say a few things, the good old boy talk, but then he'll throw these things at you like, well, come on now, we better vote, right? And I love Elon. Oh, he loves Elon. Well, Elon's the richest man in the world. He's paying him to say that. Honestly, he keeps his program on the air. Do you think I could have a program where and say the things that I say, and they would let me do it, and I would get millions and millions of followers? Why is it I don't have millions of followers? The first few months of first couple of years, I went from nothing to 215,000 subscribers. I was going fast. And at that time, some of these guys that you think are so big, I was ahead of them. It was like a horse race. And then all of a sudden they found out what I was talking about, and they put a halt to it. They shut me down for 7 months. And the only reason I got my channel back, there was they wrote me back and said that they probably would never they might reconsider me coming back on. 7 months you can contact us. So I waited 7 months and contacted them, and I knew they weren't going to let me back on unless I deleted most of all of the offensive material, which is just about everything. So I deleted most of my channel. Anyway, my point is, and they've done this 3 times to me now, and they've bankrupted me twice. So no, I'm not going to get a channel like that. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't know of anybody out there that is independent. If they were, they would have been gone by now. The only person that I do know of is this guy named John B. Wells. And I am ashamed to say that I haven't been listening to him that much, because I haven't been listening to television or radio. I remember back in the day when I used to started off listening to Coast, and then he came on as an announcer. And by the way, John said something last night that I didn't even catch while he was saying it. I guess I was too busy thinking about what I was going to say. But I didn't notice what he said there when he was talking about Scientology. He said he went down there and did an ad for them. What? Do you remember? Some of you might remember if you're a little older. It was a while back when they were pushing Dianetics. And there was a guy with this deep voice, with this amazing voice, would come on and say, Dianetics, buy it today. I don't remember exactly, but that was him. John B. Wells was the guy that did these. He had this voice. it was like, it was kind of like Lou Rawls or something. It's just an amazing voice. So he hosted the Coast to Coast program, I believe, on the weekends for a while and stuff. Then they gave him his own show, and I am amazed that they actually have a show like his. Somewhere I heard that his show is like the #1 show on radio. Now, I don't know if that's true or if I misheard that. But he he's right on a lot of the stuff that he talks about. So, if there's one of these guys out there that I do believe is not being controlled, and here's a perfect example of it. He was telling the people last night on air that they had taken me down and demonetized me and so forth. He didn't know all the extent of it, but he did talk about it. And he says, but Dave, he says, you were talking about this family. He says, who are they? I want to know who they are. Well, I think he already knew. As I said, he talks about what he calls the Khazarians, and he uses these different terms. And so when he asked me, I knew it was like, okay, you mean it's okay for me to say it here online? And you know what? I got the feeling that he was telling me it was okay to say it. Because he had told me a couple of times. He says, look, it doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want on my program. We talk about whatever we want on this program. So maybe that's why it's such a popular show. But I did not get the feeling that that man was controlled by the government in any shape, way, or form. And by the way, there are some other people there at, that run that show. It's definitely sincere from the place where they're coming from. That show is trying to promote what they believe in. And they specifically called me and asked me to come on because of the message that I am speaking. Even if, as John said last night, not everyone agrees on 100% of everything that we're all saying. But the important thing is, as John said, is that we all get on our knees and worship the one who made heaven and earth and who came and died for your sins. And as I say all the time, is coming to deliver those who simply will believe from the wrath that is coming. So if you haven't seen that show, started at 1 hour and 35 minutes, go to Rumble. You can find it there. There's a link on my Facebook. If anybody wants the link, I'll put it here in the info box to that. Go watch it and let me know what you think, whether or not you think it came off well. I haven't got much feedback from it, but I imagine most of the ones of my subscribers and stuff here probably haven't even seen it yet, because there was some confusion as to how to find it. You have to go to a radio, and a lot of us aren't even listening to the radio all the time. Most people are sitting on the, YouTube. See, so it live on the radio. So now it's on Rumble. So you can go back and watch it. And it's on, I don't know, it's on different Twitch, I think, and it's on other places at Twitter. It's on Twitter as well. But, isn't it a beautiful day? They just go over there and get themselves a drink. They're like in paradise, these chickens. They don't want for anything. Oh, I found something that I want to share with you, because some of you may have the idea to do what I'm doing, and some of you may already be doing it. And I may have a lot of my subscribers that live off-grid and stuff like this. And I wanted to let you guys know about something that I just learned about. I was thinking about what's going to happen during the tribulation. A lot of us are wondering, we're going to go in there and be off-grid, and we're going to try and survive this with prayer and fasting and some, real clever living knowledge. We're going to have to learn a lot to get through this. We're going to have to live off the land. We're going to have to know certain tricks, because let's just say for a moment, just as an example, let's say we were going to be without food, held up in the mountain somewhere for 3 years or something, and we weren't going to be able to go to the grocery market and get food. Well, the first thing I tell you guys all the time is, right now, before it happens, buy beans and rice. Now, I hate to say it, the rice is cheaper. If you don't got much money, just buy bags and bags of rice. You can get, I think it's a 20-pound bag of rice for $10, $11 at Walmart. Now, that wouldn't be my preferred food. So I buy, when I can afford it, I'm buying beans and rice. We can live on. The beans are a little more expensive now. They've gone down to a smaller bag size at Walmart, and it's like twice as much as the rice. But I love beans, and I don't want to be without my beans. I would be, if you're a coffee drinker, start really stocking up on coffee. And so we could go through those kinds of things. And as far as butter, you can't buy butter. It's not going to say, you're not going to be able, if you don't have a goat and you can't make your own butter, then what are you going to do during the tribulation? Well, you can buy the jugs of, I should say jugs, I don't know, like jars of coconut oil. And that will last, keep it sealed. That should last quite a while. I don't know how long it lasts. I would imagine it would last through the tribulation. But you can use it. It's like a butter for cooking. It's good for you. Very good for you. It's like just as good as butter. I don't know if it's as good, but it's definitely got its good qualities in many ways, better than butter or anything. Coconut oil is great. It's like olive. You can't buy a bunch of virgin olive oil because it'll spoil. I don't think the coconut oil sealed and kept in a cool place is going to spoil, but then I could be wrong. Let somebody tell me what, somebody may be more educated on that. But that's what I was doing. And it's been lasting for months. I think I've had one jar I opened a year later. It was still good. So I think I'm right. But here's the thing I was going to tell you. What about the animals? Dog food is very expensive. And guess what? All the dog food's being made by Purina now. And while I did try to buy my dogs meat, I can't buy them only meat. I didn't have the money. And I didn't really like that the dogs would eat only meat. I find that dogs really in the wild don't eat just meat. They eat lots of nuts and grass and vegetation. And they eat the poop from other animals. Now, that may sound crazy, but that's one of the things that animals do. And they do it in various ways. Cows chew their cud. So in order to digest it better, they throw it up and then they don't, spit it out. They just regurgitate it. Well, dogs do that a lot too. I don't know if you've noticed it, but they'll throw up and they'll eat it. Most people don't realize it, but they're trying to digest things that can't be digested with the first. They'll swallow it, the grass and the leaves, and it's not really digestible that way. So their system throws it back up, and then they rechew it and do the whole thing over again so it's digestible. So they do that on purpose. But they also have other ways of getting nutrients. The coyotes and stuff don't have a lot to eat sometimes. So they will go and there'll be, say, boar in the area or deer or cattle, which eat the grass. The cattle, the deer, eat the grass, the leaves. And it comes out in a very, if you look at cow manure, horse manure, and pig manure and these kinds of things, it's not fully, it doesn't look anything like human, or even dog feces. It doesn't look like something that's really even feces. It doesn't even smell nothing like feces. It's really, you can pull a cattle patty, a cow pie, and you can break it apart and look at it, and it's really like it's like compost. It's like hay and whatever they've been eating, straw and alfalfa, or whatever they've been eating, oak leaves or whatever. And it's still, you can almost see the texture of the grass and everything still in it. It hasn't been completely digested and completely, all the nutrients hasn't been gotten out of it. So the dogs go back and re-eat it. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what they do. They're scavengers, and they will also eat dead carcasses. But for the most part, the coyotes don't just, unless they're really hungry, they don't gang up and take down the deer and eat, animals live. I know that's a misnomer. And I know a lot of people will disagree with me. Oh, I've seen it. Yeah, it happens. Up in the snow where they have nothing, there's no vegetation, it's winter. The dogs will at times lower their standards. They haven't got nothing else to eat, and out of desperation they'll kill. But that's not what they mainly do. In the summer and the spring and stuff, they don't really do. They might eat old dead carcasses and bones, like I say, scavenger. But most of their diet is nuts Every time I go anywhere with my dogs, as I'm walking or as we sit down somewhere, they'll be grazing and they'll eat all the walnuts or acorns or whatever they find on the ground. And then they'll start eating grass, they'll eat leaves. And I used to think, why are they eating it and then throwing it up? That's disgusting. That's how they digest it, because they can't necessarily digest the leaves perfectly the first time. I mean, even cows can't do it. That's why they regurgitate it. So what is going to be this thing I want to tell you? I mean, I'm taking my time to get to this point because you're going to have dogs, and you can't, even now, before the tribulation begins, what are we going to feed these dogs? We can't feed them Purina. That's killing the dog. Yes, dogs are dying from this. They're trying to hush us up, and you're not going to hear it. They'll probably scrub this video because of me saying it at some point. But Purina, I guess that's about the only brand they sell at Tractor Supply and most of the stores. All these different varieties of dog food, cat food, most of them are made by Purina. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably all the major companies that make animal food. I mean, even down to the chickens. They were talking about this a while back, that all the chicken food was made by Purina at Tractor Supply. And the people that are giving that to their chickens, the chickens aren't producing eggs. And if they do produce eggs, they're very, it's like poor eggs, not good quality, and they're not producing an egg every day or something. It's making the chickens very unhealthy. Keeps them in this molting. But so what are we going to do? I mean, especially when we don't have anything to feed them. If tribulation comes, and all we've got left is we've stored up some beans and rice. Well, that's for us. We don't want to starve to death. I know a lot of you love your animals so much, you start giving your dogs the rice and beans. I don't think they could eat beans, but you could start making rice and giving that to your dogs too. And by the way, if you bought rice, just, like if you bought enough rice and beans for yourself, you could, that's one option, buy bags and bags of rice, and then you could boil it and make it and give it to your dogs if you didn't have anything to feed them during tribulation. Because they can eat rice. Of course, they'll go out and supplement it. They'll eat animal feces around the area, and which is normal. They'll go and get grass and other supplements and nutrients. They know how to take care of themselves. But to keep their tummies full, you can also give them rice. In times of starvation, you don't have anything else. That's all you had. You don't want the dogs to go hungry that night. You can make them rice. But $10, $11, $12 for 20 pounds, and that's going to make, once you make all that 20 pounds of rice into actual rice, you're going to be putting a lot of water in there. It's going to absorb the water. So it's going to be like, I don't know, 50 pounds of food or something for $11, $12? Well, that's still expensive. I don't know how much 20 pounds of rice makes. I don't know if it's 40 pounds of rice but when you boil it, or whether it's 100 pounds. I don't know. But whatever let's say it's 40, 50 pounds you get out of a 20-pound bag of rice. That's still $12 for every 50 pounds. And dog food you can get for about $30 for 40 pounds. So dog food's only a little bit more. So that's still expensive. But I found something you can buy for starvation times if you have nothing else to feed your chickens or your dogs. Because we're going to have to keep our chickens during tribulation, because they're going to produce the eggs. And we're going to have to give the chickens something that they can eat that's healthy to produce good and healthy eggs. And oh man, just 20 chickens can produce 20 eggs a day or even more. Some of these chickens will lay 2 eggs a day. And if you keep them healthy, they're going to start laying eggs all the time. And they'll breed some of them. You won't eat them all. And they'll come back with little chickies. But the only problem is you got to have a little water for the chickens. And the other thing is you have something to feed them. Because they can't, sometimes wherever you live, like especially where I'm at, there's a lot of food here. But there's not as many worms and bugs as maybe they would get if we were in Alabama. I don't know. I really don't know. I see them out grazing and they're all pecking the ground, so I don't know what they're getting off of it. But they're definitely hungry. They're coming in and I'm having to feed them. So what could you buy? Well, cornmeal. Cornmeal is less than 20 cents a pound at the store. If you just buy the 5-pound bag at Walmart or something. I imagine you could order in 50, 100-pound bags, and it'd be even probably like 10 cents a pound. That's pretty darn cheap, and you could store that up. You could buy cornmeal. It's probably the cheapest thing. I mean, if you think about the rice, we were talking about 20 pounds of rice for, well, that might make 40, 50 pounds when it's done. You can put the water in it. And you pay $12, so yeah, that's still pretty cheap. So rice is an option, certainly for the dogs. But rice boiled could be an option if you cook it and then let it cool to give to some of the chickens as well. But I don't know. I didn't look into whether or not chickens could eat cooked rice, cold cooked rice. So I'd have to look into that, and you can look into that. But rice is a good option. It's cheap. But what I'm talking about is this cornmeal for chickens specifically, because that's what they literally feed them. Is chicken scratch is mostly cornmeal. Of course, they don't grind it as finely, but you can get some coarse cornmeal. Now, I understand most of corn's probably all genetically modified and all of that stuff, but listen, we're just trying to get our chickens through the tribulation, and it doesn't seem that the chickens that are living off of just cornmeal are dying or coming out with 2 heads or anything. They're surviving and they're producing good eggs off of that. But remember, your chickens aren't going to be eating just the cornmeal. They're also going to be running around getting the bugs and stuff that they can. So that is a real possibility of buying a bulk amount of corn meal and having it, storing it up, not for us to eat. We could still eat it, kind of like a multo meal or whatever. You can. It's something you could even buy lots of if you don't have a lot of money and you're just trying to find a way to get through 3 years of tribulation. You don't have any much money. Probably the cheapest thing you can do is go get cornmeal. And even though you probably wouldn't prefer to eat that, you could survive through the winter or a couple of 3 years on that. You know, supplementing it with vegetables or whatever you could find in nature, or hunting, fishing, and whatever beans and stuff you could save too. But so, you know, you got a lot of us, like me, I drink coffee. And I know if I ran out of coffee during the tribulation, I'm going to probably be, roasting some dandelion roots and all that. But it's the caffeine, that I've been taking. And a lot of people say, oh, no, that's not right, Dave. That's an addiction. That's a drug. No. Friends, I do believe in the herbs as medicine, not as food. Okay, so teas and coffee is good for you, but that's for your mind. And I drink coffee for my mind, the energy levels. I don't drink it for my body. My body doesn't seem to do badly on coffee. It doesn't seem to have any, serious negative effects. In fact, they say drinking 2 to 4 cups of coffee a day might actually be good for you. Take that with a grain of salt or with whatever you want. But you say, oh, how could that be? Well, I can give you 2 reasons why it's very likely true. 3. The third one that I just thought of was the fact that I've been drinking it all my life, and it hasn't bothered me a bit. I think it gives me clarity of thought in the mornings when I, and it helps. It's like cannabis or anything else. It's a spiritual thing. It lifts you up. Your body has to live on nutrients to survive. You say, well, I don't need that. I don't need to eat. Well, then you'll die. Your body will die if you don't eat. It needs protein and cholesterol and different things, a balanced protein, which is you can only get from oil-based food like nuts and original grains, not the ones we live today, and meats and eggs and milk and fish. You have to have that for your body to rebuild itself. You can't survive with chips and stuff. And you can't survive on vegetables. Mostly carbs is in vegetables. Carbs are bad for the body. So the carbs, like I said, even the dogs can't digest the leaves and the grass. Cows can't even do it the first time around. They got to regurgitate it. But there are machines that are eating the stuff around them, pooping it out. That's more food for the dogs. So they're machines. Nature has a perfect harmony going on here. The cows and the deer, they go around eating. They drop that stuff, and the dogs, coyotes come and eat. What do you think the coyotes eat? out here. There's thousands of them everywhere out through the forest from, Alaska to, Argentina. What are they eating? All the wolves and coyotes and foxes. Well, they eat nuts. They eat vegetation, but a lot of times all they have to eat is the droppings of the deer and cattle. So what I'm saying is that the animals can't even digest these things called vegetables or vegetation. Yeah, there's some modern hybrid herbs that we can digest, but a lot of them have way too many carbs, just pure sugar. By the way, if you eat bananas, you can eat them and they're healthy, but you have to eat them green. Not completely green, I don't mean that. When they're yellow, but they still have a green, they're a little green on them here and there. Okay? Because if you eat them when they're yellow and they're starting to turn brown, they turn to sugar. And it's not very good for you at all. It's just like eating a candy bar, it's just nothing but sugar. When you eat them green, your body isn't able to break down the fiber, the glucose in the banana. So it's not spiking your insulin levels or whatever, and the fiber that's in a banana and the potassium is what makes it good for you. Now, the same thing with coffee. That's the second reason. I said there are three. The second reason coffee is not that bad for you is because it has so much potassium in it. So anything that has a lot of potassium is really probably good for you, as long as it has some other poison in it. But the biggest mineral that the coffee actually has is potassium. And of course, yeah, there is caffeine, but caffeine's a drug like other drugs. Some are worse than others. Caffeine doesn't seem to be too harmful if done in a moderation. We don't know if it's at all harmful. Possibly. I mean, they say that beans are, if you listen to that one doctor, he says beans have lectins, therefore they're not good for you. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I haven't studied, lectin. I don't know that I agree that they're bad for you. I think maybe people who have damaged guts cannot digest them as well. I believe people who are healthy can eat some sugar, and I don't think it bothers them. I think your intestinal tract develops a layer when you're healthy. It's a layer, a certain sheet of mucus and a little cellular lining that when you have that, you can digest foods. It's made up of bacterias and it's got a little place where it all ferments and breaks things down and doesn't lay in there and cause acid buildup and holes in your guts and inflammation. So I think a healthy person can easily eat berries and bananas moderately. But you shouldn't. But you have to understand that what we were intended to eat originally was the fruit of the tree, and most all trees in nature produce a nut or a bean, a legume, such as the mesquite that have the bean pods. Many other trees have. There's lots of acacia, small shrubbery around the world, whether Israel, United States, Texas, all around the world, Africa, that produce the beans in different kind of. I wouldn't call them nuts. I'd call them more of a legume. But then there's another group that almost looks like seeds. We call them nuts, like pine nuts. The whole area in the Appalachians and the South, it's all, most of the United States is walnuts and pecans and acorns. And so that is what we're supposed to eat, the fruit, meaning the offspring. That's the word that should be translated offspring. The offspring of the tree. And most of the trees produce, and vegetation of all kinds, produce, well, the small grasses produce these little grains, and they're okay too. The original or wild versions, acorn, which is an original version of a wheaty kind of thing, barley, buckwheat you can eat, and different things, spelt and millet. But no, not modern wheat. It has gluten, and it's been hybridized to a point where there's a lot of carbs and sugars, and it spikes your insulin. So, no, I wouldn't do all that. So back to coffee, the third thing. So we've got, the first thing is that I've been doing it for years, and it's certainly given me good benefits. 2, it has all the potassium. But 3, there's been studies that have said that it actually improves cognition and energy levels, and it, you know, many doctors have said that a drink in moderation, it's good for you. So there's the third reason. But as far as this corn, no, I wouldn't prefer corn of any kind. That's why I'm stocking up beans and rice. But problem with rice is it might be used as a starvation food, but there's a lot of carbs in rice as well. But there's also fiber. And when you have food that has fiber, you can handle a little bit more carbs. If you're healthy, as I've said. If you're not healthy and then you can't eat a lot of things, you might end up becoming lactose intolerant. How could you do that? Every baby's born supposed to drink milk, right? That's what we're supposed to drink. And you say, yeah, but only until you're 2. No. Cow's milk is turned into butter, cheese, and cottage cheese, and sour cream, and all these things that mankind has been eating for thousands of years. And it's certainly something that was an integral part of our diet for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah, people ate mostly meat back in the days of the Neanderthal, okay? And they've been continuing to eat meat from those days on to our day. Until modern times now, where everybody's being forced not to eat meat, and they're being told, oh, it's bad and we got to have fake meat. Well, it's just because they're trying to make sure that you aren't healthy. But what I was talking about, here we are at 46 minutes, was that I got off on all of that because I wanted to tell you about this cornmeal. That it is a very cheap way. I mean, look, we're just talking about the chickens here. If you had chickens and you don't know what you're going to feed them and they can't get enough food just wandering around your yard or your property, and you need something to supplement it, you can go and get cornmeal. And you could probably buy hundreds of pounds of cornmeal for a few dollars. Like, I get 5 pounds of cornmeal in the small bag at Walmart for $1. That's 20 cents a pound there. And that's just in a 5-pound bag. If you got it in bulk, I'm sure you could get it down to 10 cents. Or I should say, about 10 cents a pound or even less. And that is affordable to stock up on for the chickens. And if we had nothing else to eat or feed the dogs, we could make some kind of a porridge for the dogs to keep them alive until we could get something else. I know the dogs would probably eat that. They seem to love porridge and oatmeals and things like that. Now, oatmeal, you might be able to get some oatmeal that pretty cheap if you bought it in the 50-pound bags. And that'd be good to do, but I haven't found it because all of it's for horses and stuff, and they put chemicals on it, and it's even going up. That kind with the molasses and all that stuff we can't eat. Now, who knows what they're putting on that for the horses. So if you could find some place that sold just, go down to the mill, literally, down to, if you live in Ohio or Indiana or Kansas, and they sell a lot of wheat and there's silos, you might be able to go and buy it by the 50-pound gunny sack for pennies. I don't know. But stock up, guys. I'm begging my listeners to say, look, okay, I've been putting this off. Dave's talked about it. I've thought about it, and I don't know. But look, things are getting bad. At least I believe it's going to happen to the point, like, okay, well, I don't know if it's going to happen, Dave. If the end of the world's coming, like you say. Well, don't you think there could be a really good chance? I mean, you ever thought what's going to happen when they go cashless and then they have all that control? And they say, oh, well, there's a bad storm coming through, so we don't want anybody buying this or that. And they shut or we don't want anybody traveling because there's, smog levels or, whatever. It's too hot. People could die on the road. Or they'll just come up with stuff and they'll say, I mean, they're doing it even without that. They just claim, oh, there's global warming, therefore we've got to have the cities. People can't be driving. They're using too much gas. They're going to pull the plug on the oil. So you know that these things are happening within months. And if you want to, you say, well, I'm going to trust in the Lord Jesus. Okay, well, the Lord Jesus has told me to tell you to get you some food and share it with your neighbor. Get you enough food that you can feed your family for at least 3.5 years. And get enough to where you might have some left over to help if there are guests. And some of us, at some point, I may actually have to flee the city, even if you're not willing to go now. Because, all the way through the tribulation, it keeps saying, oh, there was all these plagues, and then they still wouldn't repent, right? And then there's some more plagues, and oh, they still wouldn't repent. I believe that will continue in waves until people get down on their knees and repent. So at some point, maybe even if you're not willing to go now, you're going to want to go later. And when you go, I think you should bring as much food as you can to help put in the pot. So regardless of whether you're leaving the city, maybe you can't, I would seriously look into storing up. You say, well, I ain't got the money to store it for food. I can barely feed myself as it is. Well, like I said, do a little research. Go on eBay or somewhere and see if you can buy bulk. Go to the local mill, wherever you are. Ask around. Go on the internet. Try to look up, right in the question, how can I find raw oatmeal in 50-pound barley sacks or barley? Go buy just barley. That's not bad food for you. 50-pound bags of barley. I don't know what that would cost. But you say, well, even that I can't afford. Like I said, well, that's why I'm telling you about the cornmeal. Because you can get, even if you ain't willing to go on the internet and look up where you could get it by the 50-pound bag or whatever, you definitely could go to Walmart right now and buy it 5 pounds for $1. That's 10 pounds for $2. That's 20 pounds for $4. That's 40 pounds for $8. And 40 pounds of cornmeal will feed you and your family probably a month, right? Or more, or 2 months, or I don't even know. Buy as much of it as you can. If you've got enough money, get your own food and stock it up and get you some coffee and maybe you could look into planting, having some seeds of some of the herbs. Friends, you're going to need the herbs. You're going to need your mind to be rejuvenated as well, not just your body. As I was saying earlier, your body lives on food. But what does your mind live on? Energy is coming out of your mind. That's positive thinking and happiness. It doesn't just come for free. There's got to be a flow. So you've got to receive good energy to give it good energy. We talked about that the other day. So that means that's why the Lord made the herbs. And it tells you that in the Bible. The herbs are for the healing of the nations. We're going to be using the herbs properly. The medicine man is going to come back. And we're going to have that knowledge returned to us. And we're going to be knowing what these herbs do. And we're going to find out there were herbs and there are herbs all around us that do so many things that will make our lives so much better. This is salvation, to know this truth. If a community doesn't have a medicine man, that's what they originally were. Today we don't even know what a priest is for. We don't know what a holy man or an elder is for. Like the wise elders. Because they don't have any wisdom anymore. They lost it. So what are they good for? This old woman over here says she's a wise woman. She don't know nothing. Oh, she knows how to weave a rug. Maybe you should sit down and talk to her. Some of the native older people know some things. But, in fact, maybe we should ask them every time we see them, tell me again, Grandma, about the herbs and the teas and things. Because it's to the point now, if you've got anybody that knows any of this stuff, you should find out now. Because this knowledge will come back to us during the millennial. And the knowledge has come back to us now. We know that it's important, but we just don't know which herbs and how to make them. You have to understand that each one of these herbs got to be processed properly. You can't just go out and eat fresh marijuana and just eat it like a cow and it's going to do anything for you. Because it's a particular herb that needs a certain process. So this is why when you smoke it, you release the cannabinoids so that you can get the benefits. But there are better ways to eat it. If it's dried in the sun, all you have to do is take a bite in your mouth. You don't have to sit and smoke it. Although a little smoke won't hurt your lungs if you're healthy, because your throat has a lot of mucus and it mitigates the smoke. But if you're not a healthy person and you smoke, if you're a person who smokes and you start coughing, you shouldn't be smoking. But you can still partake of the herbs, okay? Instead of cooking it, you can either make a tea, but you got to boil it for about 2 hours. Can't just simmer it for 5 minutes. Or you can bake it, put it in your bread and stuff and get the benefits. But it has to reach a certain temperature. You can boil it in oil and use the oil for your bakery goods, or you can just bake it into the bakery good. Some people don't like to do that because they think it tastes like cannabis, and they don't like that taste, but I don't think it tastes much like cannabis. I mean, it might have a little flavor, but I like that taste. But the other thing, like I said, you can just dry it on the rock. The same thing goes with Amanita muscaria. It has to be dried out, or you can make a tea, but it has to be boiled for like 2-3 hours. And a lot of the herbs have this process. They have to be heated to a certain point. So there's a lot of herbs in nature that might be good that people don't know because they've never really learned how it is that you're supposed to do this. A lot of them have to be cooked in some way. Some of them are oil-based, some are water-based. So there's different things that, and there are cases, and probably a lot more than what we know, of plants that need to be processed with another plant that may live right next to it, that grow in the same area. If you've noticed, no matter where you are in the world, the Lord provided you with a particular plant that will feed your mind. If you live in some areas, it's cannabis. If you live in other areas, like in Arizona, it's peyote in northern Mexico. If you live in areas like up in the north, in the tundra, there's kinnikinnick. If you live in a place where there's fields of, like, say, Afghanistan, there are a lot of fields in the meadows, and the poppies grow. They can process that, smoke it or something. And it's not the same as the heroin, things like that. That's chemical. We don't do that. Just the natural herbs. And then there are the daffodils. You can use daffodils in a couple of different ways. The way that they used to do it was that they would have fields of daffodils, and they would have a beehive. They would literally bring them in, encourage them. But in nature they do this all the time. But if you wanted to, you could see a field of daffodils, and you'd know that the bees in that area were producing some hallucinogenic honey. So you go and you find that beehive. That's the best stuff you'll ever experience. And you could buy it. You can even buy that. But, those are things that if you have, before the tribulation comes, you have property. You might look into planting some daffodils if you live in an area where you can do that and get a beehive going there. Or, like I say, most places wherever you are, you can grow your own. We'll just call it mushroom. We won't say what kind. P, it starts with a P, with a sill, and you know what I mean. Those are good. We already mentioned the Amanita anyway. But you can grow those. Now, if you don't know how, it might be a little effort to figure out how to get them going. But once you do that and you figure that out, it's pretty simple. There are ways you can take grains like rye and put it into bread and let it ferment, and it really literally makes LSD. That's where LSD comes from, is from the fungus or the yeast in plants like rye. So anyway, it looks like we're almost an hour, 58 minutes here, and I'm just talked about some things that I didn't even know I was going to talk about. But I think it's important that we talk about these things. We need to prepare and know what to do. And just to be safe, for some of you, if you're not completely sure what you're doing, just prepare. And better safe than sorry. So you can have something to share with your family. I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. All the little birdies are just pruning themselves. And there's Mr. Pheasant. Doesn't he look like more of a pheasant than a chicken? Anyway, guys, we'll see you guys tomorrow. May the Lord bless you. Have a good one.